Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going inside the playbook of a highly strategic consulting proposal to see exactly how a modern political legacy is architected from the shadows. What we are looking at is a confidential advisory document prepared by a strategist named Kimani for Honorable Titus, a political leader in Kandara constituency, Kenya. And let me tell you, this isn't your standard campaign manifesto, it is a full-blown blueprint for establishing a self-sustaining intelligence apparatus.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. How do you actually win without campaigning? In an era where voters are incredibly skeptical of traditional political rhetoric and empty promises, this document proposes a radical shift. It suggests totally abandoning the loud, poster-heavy, baby-kissing campaign cycle and instead deploying a data-backed knowledge machine. It's all about redefining leadership by providing actionable, concrete solutions before a single vote is even cast.
To tear down this playbook, we're going to hit these 6 steps. Mapping a new leadership model, checking out the Kandara demographic reality, looking at the behind-the-scenes strategist, building actionable knowledge products, executing the 90-day pilot plan, and finally, impact and risk mitigation. Let's get into it. Section 1. A new leadership model. Subtitled, Evidence-Based Government. Modern statesmanship requires transitioning away from guesswork and heavily leaning into evidence-based constituency development. Just take a look at this. Kandara is densely populated, with over 175,000 residents in Murang'a County. And when you combine that 58% working-age chunk with the 33% youth demographic, wow, you are looking at a staggering 91% of the entire constituency that absolutely requires employment, skills training, and enterprise opportunities right now. You simply cannot govern this demographic with traditional soundbites. They need real, structural, economic acceleration. Moving to Section 2, the Kandara demographic reality and strategic interventions. We aren't just throwing random stats at the wall here. This is demographic intelligence that maps out the exact battleground for strategic political interventions. Now, look at this massive drop-off. It's kind of wild. Kandara boasts a really impressive 93.9% primary school enrollment rate, which provides a great educational foundation. But then secondary school enrollment just plummets to 37.8%, noticeably below the national target. This is a glaring transition gap. For a data-driven leader, this points a big red arrow, exactly where policy focus needs to go to stop thousands of youths from just falling through the cracks. On top of that, the constituency receives roughly 188 million shillings annually from the NGCDF allocation. Because Kandara has 6 wards, it sits in a higher-tier funding bracket. That is a significant pool of capital that absolutely demands a coherent, high-impact project layout, rather than just throwing money at fragmented or stalled community projects. And this right here brilliantly shows how the strategy totally avoids blanket solutions. By mapping out the 6 specific wards, the proposal chooses to target hyper-local realities. For example, over in Nyerere and Ruchu, the focus is strictly agricultural, revitalizing coffee cooperatives and supporting aging farmers. But step over to Kagunduni, which is an education hub, and the primary intervention becomes managing parents' anxieties over the new competency-based curriculum. Or take Iteru, where the high youth concentration means the battle is all about closing the digital infrastructure divide. Okay, Section 3, the behind-the-scenes strategist, acting as the architect. Enter Cassan Kimani, the strategist proposing to build this entire programmatic infrastructure without ever stealing the political spotlight. This binary rule is, honestly, the absolute genius of the pitch. The proposal explicitly outlines a positioning principle. It guarantees that the strategist is not a co-candidate, not a campaign face, and will 0% compete for the spotlight. Instead, they act purely as a behind-the-scenes policy architect. By remaining completely invisible, the strategist makes sure the politician, Honorable Titus, gets total and undivided credit for delivering real-world solutions to the voters. Next up, Section 4, building actionable knowledge products as high-utility assets. This is where we shift from standard political promises to deploying tangible assets, where theory literally becomes community action. The core deliverable of this partnership is the creation of these 7 flagship knowledge products. And listen, these aren't your typical glossy campaign posters. They are practical tools directly branded under the constituency's insignia. You've got a Vision 2035 blueprint detailing sector-by-sector metrics, and an opportunity atlas mapping out local wealth like ECD centers and youth groups.
More practically, there's a handbook to help parents survive the financial and practical demands of the CBC curriculum, and a youth toolkit packed with step-by-step blueprints for digital freelancing and high-yield agribusiness. Real, usable stuff.
Now, the really crucial point here is this strict 95-5 distribution ratio. The strategist is essentially an author, leveraging his previously published works to create these local guides. But, to avoid looking like he is just trying to hawk his books to voters, 95% of the narrative is heavily customized to focus entirely on the constituency's value, their data, and the politician's executive vision. The author's own credibility markers, his certifications and book lists, are limited to a mere 5%, buried deep in the document's appendix to subtly validate the frameworks without distracting the reader at all.
All right, Section 5, the 90-day pilot plan and a stealthy rollout. Because let's face it, ideas are only as good as their execution. This playbook relies on a relentless, stealthy rollout outlined in the pilot plan.
Let's look at the roadmap to see how this builds a continuous feedback loop. In month 1, they execute a quiet data audit, cleaning up local statistics and mapping influential stakeholders like church leaders and youth group heads. Then, month 2, boots on the ground with ward listening tours, hosting focus groups with unemployed youth and anxious parents, while launching a pilot digital academy. Finally, by month 3, they consolidate all this raw, localized data into a massive, fully branded constituency launch event, revealing the development packages to the media. Boom. Finally, Section 6. Impact and risk mitigation through measuring outcomes. A truly elite advisory pitch doesn't just promise the moon, it actively anticipates liabilities and measures outcomes. Success here is tracked with actual corporate rigor. They aren't just counting crowd sizes at rallies. Nope, they aim to scale from 2,500 constituents engaged at the 90-day mark to over 15,000 actively engaged constituents within a year, and that is verifiable through town hall registers and digital download logs. The Digital Academy aims to train 500 youth, and they plan to publish 20 executive policy briefs to firmly position the leader as a true intellectual authority. But what if things go wrong? Well, the strategist effectively bulletproofs the entire operation by addressing hurdles up front. Community skepticism, solved by co-creating listening reports so citizens actually see their direct input in the final blueprints. Budget constraints on massive printing costs, solved by leveraging zero-cost WhatsApp deployment to distribute digital training modules directly to people's phones. And claims of political bias, handled by strictly grounding all frameworks in verifiable data from official sources like the National Census.
I love this closing anchor from the proposal because it just perfectly summarizes the shift. The goal isn't just surviving a single election cycle. It is about elevating the conversation way above typical sound bites and establishing a permanent, self-sustaining intelligence apparatus that makes a leader's narrative practically untouchable. So, it leaves us to wonder, as local governance becomes increasingly complex, and as voters demand real economic solutions over empty rhetoric, are these stealthy, evidence-based playbooks going to become the universal standard for modern political leadership? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems behind the scenes and keep learning.